I've never talked about this before, and maybe it's for the best, but I actually didn't start playing computer games until like 2010, like right when I was out of high school. I was kind of just a console peasant up until that point, but I did have one experience, and that's with two games, Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 and 3. I guess you could say they kind of popped my PC gaming cherry. I remember very vividly like being a kid and like going into the game section of like a Target or a Walmart, and I would just always see these covers. They were always there no matter what. And eventually I was like, hey, Mama, can you please buy this for me? I would really appreciate it. And of course, you know, she said, no, bitch, put it back. I'm not paying for that shit. I've actually in the past made a lot of videos on Parkitect and Planet Coaster. There's just so much nostalgia, and we're gonna talk about those at the end of the video. The first video game ever, apparently, with a coaster in it, was called 3D Crazy Coaster on a console I have never even heard of or seen before. This is back in like 1983. I guess the goal was to just control your passengers, make sure they don't get decapitated. In a way, you're kind of playing as French monarchy, aren't you? Then there was a game called Rollercoaster. I know, very original, made in 1985. Your goal is to, I guess, run around collecting money. You get 10 lives, and then you die. Apparently, this is like the first game ever to have multiple amusement park rides. There was also Rollercoaster Rumbler, which has one of the most incredible premises I've ever heard of. You are riding a roller coaster that has a mounted machine gun on it. You just shoot shit. The fact that we don't still have this in real life, like 30 years later almost, it's just sad. Come on, Disneyland, get on this. You probably noticed that none of these games are actually like simulation or management based. That'd have to wait till 1993 with a game called Coaster. Again, super original title. Now this is still far from what we know and love today as like theme park builders. This was more of just like you create your own coaster, I guess design your own ride. And I did like this menu system. Like it did seem pretty well thought out. You know, I think it's a pretty nice start for the time. There was a first person mode. You could actually ride the coaster and it was beautiful. It looks just incredible. Man, why don't they make games like this anymore? I didn't know any of these games up to this point, but I did of course recognize Theme Park. And yeah, I was going to start making fun of it for the title, but it actually does make sense. These are the same guys that eventually went on to make Theme Hospital. Obviously that's kind of a big deal, especially with the release of 2 Point Hospital, kind of a spiritual successor. But this game was on everything. It was on multiple platforms. It had very good reviews, kind of the first of its kind. Oh, and it was also published by Satan. So they had that going for it. 5 years later, and we had the first installment of Rollercoaster Tycoon. It was made by a man named Chris Sawyer. I guess he wrote like 99% of the code, and this would eventually go on to be the best-selling PC game of the whole year. So yeah, I mean, to say the least, he was ballin'. This is actually the only game that would eventually be released, at least in the series, on Xbox out of the first 3 installments. Now, the people that made the port to Xbox was a company named Frontier. We're gonna talk about them a little bit later. There was eventually 2 expansion packs as well, and it would go on to sell at least 4 million copies. Now, I didn't know about this game. When I was a kid, I had no idea. I was still kind of plebbing with my, I don't know, PS1 at this time, but things would change, obviously, with Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, which is pretty similar, at least like visually, but at the same time better in a lot of other ways. I just remember being super excited for the fact that like I could build things in this game from a place I'd actually been to in real life, Six Flags Magic Mountain. I don't know why that was so mind-blowing for me, but I was a little kid, okay? My brain was small, still small, but I like to think it's a little bit more developed. I was shocked to find out this game still has a pretty big community. 15 years later, subreddit still has active members. I recently saw a guy build a ride that was like 12 years long. It took 12 years to finish. That shit was crazy. So obviously, hardcore fans of the Rollercoaster Tycoon franchise are getting major boners. This is like the pinnacle, best game ever. They don't like the third one as much, which, I mean, as a kid, I was all about that third one. I mean, it was 3D. This is beautiful from a hardcore standpoint. I get it, you know, hardcore fans are gonna bust a nut here. But for some reason when you're a kid, like all you're thinking about is like the way things look. You just wanna play a game that looks cool. You don't care about any other aspects. And I'm not saying this game isn't as deep. There are some things, I will defend it until the day I die, okay? I will say that. This was the first time that guests would arrive in groups and they would stay together in a group. So like you'd have a family of 4, 2 parents and the kids. You know, little things like that I think were pretty fun. At night, the teenagers would come out and cause a big ruckus. I remember specifically really just loving that aspect. Weirdly enough, you can't even buy this game on Steam anymore. It was pulled down because of legal issues, I guess. But this game sold 10 million copies, and you couldn't really escape it for multiple years after it, because there wasn't really the right successor. There was Thrillville, which was made for Xbox, PlayStation 2, but that was not a computer game, so obviously it was not as deep. Still a fun game, but it was definitely geared towards a different audience. I mean, it just had less management, less sandbox, had pretty kind of average reviews. But I do know a lot of people that really enjoyed this game, especially if they didn't have a computer. This was the start for a lot of people. As you probably know, there were a ton of spin-offs after these first 3 installments. It was actually really horrible because they've all been very, very bad. Like, so many different types of games for different platforms, and let's just be honest, they've all sucked. Mostly iOS games. There was actually something released recently for the Switch, which, I mean, I'm not even gonna talk about that. Well, I guess let's just say it's not really off to the greatest start. Yeah. Now in the background, there were plenty of other games being developed just like this one. This was kind of the renaissance of these types of games. There were a lot of other people that were making something similar. There were 2 more sequels to Theme Park. There was Sim Theme Park or Theme Park Worlds, that was the second, and then there was Theme Park Inc. in 2001, that was the final game. Of course, they were all well reviewed, and you know, they were all fun in their own right, but just not as commercially successful. There was Legoland in 2000, which I remember playing these damn Lego games. They were so bad. I actually might need to look back into them. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like addicted to this shit. Danish propaganda, I swear, I couldn't escape it as a kid. Now I know better. I think we all know better now. I do also gotta mention Coaster Works for the Dreamcast, or also known as Rollercoaster World for the PlayStation 2. I never played this. I just have to mention, like, these screams. Oh, it's too good. It is too good. It's like you have 3 12-year-old girls and they just sporadically scream. They're just yelling. Sometimes not even at the right time. As I said, you know, the genre had kind of been dead for a while. Just some really bad iOS games and a couple others until Planet Coaster and Parkitect, which these games are perfect because they satisfy 2 different sides of the community. You know, Parkitect really making those Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 fans happy, and then Planet Coaster, which is obviously like a 2018 version of RCT3. It's funny because obviously back in the day, like I said, I preferred Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, but I think now, personally, I really enjoy Parkitect. Like, I have definitely maybe swapped my position. I enjoy this aspect now a lot more. Even though Planet Coaster is amazing still, I do miss the management. I just love the management part of these games. You can't deny how beautiful Planet Coaster is though. Like, this game is incredible to look at. I'm just glad I can buy both these games for myself. I don't have to ask my mama anymore and risk getting that ass whooping. Mama, please don't hurt me, I love you. I really hope these games continue with the future, like with VR and a game like No Limits. I didn't talk about No Limits 2. I think this gaming niche is gonna stay around for a while. I would like that. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy. I didn't even know about this, but VR and roller coaster rides, they go together like me and cringe. You know, you just can't separate them. It's kind of off topic, but you even have rides at real theme parks now building VR coasters. I mean, I guess it makes sense. You can save money on scenery, and that coaster rating's gonna go way up. Yeah, anyways, I did eventually get both games, and I remember them just like completely changing my perspective on the whole like PC gaming thing. I would just watch the coasters like in first-person mode. That would be honestly fun enough. Now that I think about it, actually, that's probably what ruined me. I now watch games for a living. It clearly had a very harmful psychological impact on me. I seriously have a special place in my heart for these games. Like, every time I'm at a theme park, I can't just help but want to go back home and play any sort of theme park builder. So thank you to these games for completely, like I said, ruining the way I think about going outside. I mean, I don't go outside very often, clearly. I'm a weird person. I can't just go out. Also, the house arrest makes it difficult. But when I do get a chance, like, I literally just want to leave. No Disneyland for me. Let me go back home. I mean, the way you guys have these trash cans set up, this is terrible. People are gonna start vandalizing shit, and I'm gonna start littering. People are gonna start throwing up on the ground. This is disgusting. And why am I paying entry fees? I should be getting in for free and then paying per ride. How backwards are you? Thanks for watching. See you next time.
And big thanks to Furry, Cruz, Elphie, Destiny, 9000. Hen Papa Stalin of the Paintbrushes, Danko Franco, Mega Fat Boy, Elijah Senpai, Ruserification, Jen's Luvdisc, SwissAargau, Maxy G, King Solomon, Abraxxas, Galley, TannerOfNazareth, Hatman, CooterDonkey, Mr. Diddlesman, Brandon H, Beard Dun 97, The Lord of Silence,
Ben Whitson, Valankari, Jared Clark,
and Ben Mo.